My name is Cherry Fisher May. I am the co-publisher for End Media. We produce this event every year, and this is the 12th year. You're going to hear a lot more about the historic landmark year that we have reached today as the program goes on. But it's my pleasure to represent our company with all of you today. We're going to begin with an invocation and the Star-Spangled Banner. And you may notice the group on the stage today. This is an important year for Lynn and Joey, and so you'll hear more about the head table. But we are going to begin with an invocation by Father Steve LeBlanc from St. Pius, and that will be followed by the national anthem performed by Lynn and Joey's granddaughter, Hannah Hebert, who is a sophomore at STM. So please stand as you are able for the invocation and our national anthem.
Let us pray. O God, creator of all that is good, we praise you and honor you. Each second of life you give us is precious and profound. We pause now so as not to take these gifts for granted. We are grateful for all that you have created, and especially grateful for living in an area that we affectionately call Acadiana, with its music, its food, and now its boudin king cake. Who would have thought? We thank you for the leadership that has surfaced in this community throughout its years, and even most recently. We thank you for those persons who call us to take time for work and for play, to make time for love and praise, to create time for rest, and the leisure necessary for creation. We lift up our heart in thanks. We are grateful for the leadership of those who have had vision for this community to make it a place where all are welcomed, where all can find a home, where prosperity can occur, and the quality of life be nurtured. We who live in the present recall the past so that by our remembrance we might more fittingly prepare for the future time. For all that you give us, we are grateful. For the food that we're to receive, we ask that you would bless. We ask this in all that is good, for you are a God who has created us and sustains us forever and ever. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, in the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Hannah Hebert, everybody. Please have a seat. We'll start the program in about 20 minutes. While we're waiting for service to begin, there are a few additional announcements I'd like to make. So if I could, in the interest of time, have everyone's attention, please. Today marks the 12th year for the State of Parish event, and each year it kicks off with a lecture series that End Media launched when we first started the company 12 years ago. This luncheon has been the premier event of that series ever since. When my husband Steve had the idea for this series, the first call he made was to Darryl Bird, knowing that Iberia Bank would be the perfect sponsor for something so ambitious and important to moving our community forward. As Iberia has grown and brought in new presidents, first Pete Ewan and now Jerry Vascacu, that partnership has continued, and we couldn't ask for better. Iberia Bank was born and raised right here in Acadiana and has made us proud. It's now the largest financial holding company headquartered in Louisiana. And in every market, the bank operates as good stewards in the community with partnerships in education, the arts, culture, healthcare, and economic development through volunteerism, financial donations, and other charitable actions. Their bench is deep, and the decision-making is local, and that's important when you play a key role in a community like ours. With 30 branches in the Acadiana region, Iberia is #1 in market share, but also a leader in digital banking technology. And the little phone wallets that you have at each place, courtesy of Iberia, are a great reminder of the commitment they have to staying first in the digital age. So to Acadiana Market President Jerry Vascacu, his team, the entire board of Iberia Bank, we say thank you for your continued support. And would the entire Iberia Bank family please stand so we can say thanks and give you a round of applause. The next event in the series that Iberia Bank sponsors is the InDesign Awards. It's an event that focuses on the importance of a well-planned community while celebrating excellence in architecture, historical preservation, and interior design. There has been a very robust participation among competitors this year, and the judging will start this week. The event is Thursday, April 18th, and so today we're announcing the keynote speaker for that event, Steve Mouzon, who was brought in during Plan Lafayette Week to help us strategize as our region is competing for 21st century jobs. Our unique culture is a powerful asset that can attract and retain the talent to be successful, but our local communities lack options for high-quality city living, and it's a concern that was addressed head-on in Plan Lafayette 2015. What might an architectural style for urban dwellers in Acadiana look like? That was the question posed by the award-winning designer and author who is going to be our keynote speaker. He met last week with local architects, planners, builders, community and government activists during Plan Lafayette Week. And at this year's InDesign Awards, he will unveil a vision for the types of living spaces that today's professional workforce finds desirable, yet adapted for our local climate and culture. And Mouzon, as a side note, is very familiar with the topic that he's been tasked to tackle, not to be too alliterative, but he was credited as one of the creators of Katrina Cottage, which of course has won several design awards for sustainability and architecture. So please mark your calendars for April 18th. Watch theend.com for more, and lunch will be served shortly, and we'll introduce Joey in just a moment. Thanks. As the last few tables are served, I'll go ahead and move the program along. And just to tell you how this is going to be organized today, Joey will have some remarks that will last about 20 or 25 minutes, he says. And following his presentation, we'll have a Q&A. And that was an element that we introduced last year at the State of the Parish that people really enjoyed. So Once again, we'll bring our managing editor, Walter Pierce, will join Joey up here on stage. Joey, we're putting you on the white hot seat in the middle, so that'll be where you go. And joining Walter Pierce today in the Q&A, we're proud to announce a new contributing political writer for In Media, and that's Dr. Pearson Cross. He's the head of UL's Political Science Department, and we look forward to having him join us in print and live here today. Some questions were already submitted by readers. Others have been prepared by Wally and Pearson. Joey has seen none of the questions before this program, so the answers will be spontaneous. And if you have a question you'd like to submit to Wally, you can email him on your smartphone. That's walterp@theend.com. Walter P as in Pierce @theend.com. So if you'd like to submit a question for Wally to consider, he'll be checking his phone throughout the luncheon. It was a very different Joey Durrell who took this stage 12 years ago. Although he had limited experience in speaking to large audiences at chamber events, because he was, of course, a past chairman of the chamber of Lafayette, his first State of the Parish was a coming out of sorts for him as an elected official. It was a huge crowd, much like today, an audience representing a broad range of the people who have a stake in the parish he had just been elected to govern. And he was nervous. So nervous, in fact, that he fessed up to me before this speech that he had sneaked a glass of red wine before coming just to settle his nerves. But he assumed the mantle quickly, and I haven't seen evidence of any liquid courage required for a State of the Parish event since. This office was Joey's first foray into politics, and it's quite a leap to go from managing and running and owning a small private business, however successful, to standing at the helm of a multi-million-dollar enterprise like consolidated government. The scale, scope, and complexity are many, many times what Joey had stewarded before. I'm sure he may have felt a lot like the dog that chased the bus and finally caught it. But he brought a business approach to government, and there's an old adage that 80% of what it takes to run a business is all the same. It's 20% that makes each business unique. And although it's also commonly said that government is nothing like running a business, I think Joey stands today as an example that that may not be completely true. He brought some of the best business practices into running Lafayette Parish consolidated government, and he utilized the veterans of the system in creative new ways. The fact that he was returned to office twice more without opposition, I think, is testament to that success. I won't go into the many details of his many achievements here. I know that he's doing some reminiscing today, and I look forward to that. But in true Joey form, don't expect him to rest on his laurels today either. There is more work to do, and he actually has an ambitious agenda to present today. So here to give a look back, and yes, a look forward, and to present his final State of the Parish address is Joey Durrell.
Thank you, Charity, and thank you to Iberia Bank and the Independent for doing this. I think I want to make a couple of corrections, though. This is about a 45-minute speech because my wife said, I don't want Walter Pierce asking you any questions. And Mike Hebert has just taken his Ambien because he wanted to have a controlled sleep instead of passing out when Walter asked me the wrong questions. So, do you feel the momentum? You should. Because after all, Harvard says you are the happiest people in the world, or at least in America for sure. What a wonderful ride this has been for my family and I, that we've shared this with you. So much of our family life has been defined by this brief, almost 12 years. There have been some pretty exciting things along the way for us, but there have been some not so happy things that happened as well. When we got elected, we had two granddaughters, Hannah and Meredith Hebert, daughters of Nicole and Tommy Hebert. Nicole is the Deputy State Director of Senator Vitter. Her husband works for Atmos. Natalie married Patrick Broussard, and about 8 years ago, I came up here and told you that Braxton had been born the day before, weighing 10 pounds, 13 ounces, and would be walking in any minute. Today, he has a brother, Hudson, and a sister, Maddie. Natalie is the STM Development Director, and her husband is a landman here in Lafayette. Jason married Rachel Anders. Jason's a physician here in Lafayette. Rachel is a dentist. And they have Reese. They're not with us today because they are at the hospital delivering Hayes Joseph Durrell. We keep waiting to get a picture any second now. She's actually in the process. But we also lost 3. Lynn lost her mom, and I lost both of my parents. So our family has transformed quite a bit. Speaking of family, I would like this table to stand up, my siblings and their spouses. Because they've gone through some of this themselves quite a bit with us. But I cannot even begin to do justice to what Lynn has experienced. I have one real goal in this next chapter of our lives, and that goal is to live long enough to pay back to Lynn everything that she has given to me and to this community. That first part, this page, she never saw when she read my speech because she would have not let me put that in there. I ran for this office and told you it was about people, not politics, that it was about keeping our children home. I told you that Lafayette was ready to flourish. It just needed new leadership with enthusiasm and energy. Not once in 11 years have I reneged on those words. We said we had to raise the bar, and we have. There is no doubt that with some of what we have accomplished, Lafayette would be a different place 25 years from now than it otherwise would have been. Fiber has attracted jobs that are keeping and bringing in the best and the brightest. Our efforts to bring a medical school will also bring in the best and the brightest. And when they come here to work or to train, amenities like our new Central Park will knock their socks off. And of course, our comprehensive plan will help guide us in a way you wanted us to head and will help future leaders spend money a little more efficiently. We're the smallest market in America with a Ruth's Chris. Now we're going to be the smallest market in America with a Costco. We not only think big, we compete big. Today we have more than 34,000 new jobs in Lafayette than we had when I got in office. Actually 34,600. That was what I promised more than anything else. And I'm not delusional enough to think that our administration made those jobs happen. But 12 years ago, I told you it was the private sector that created jobs, but that government could facilitate the creation of jobs. That government could create a favorable environment for business. And I know in my heart that we'd helped do some of that. And we did run government like a business, the best we could under the rules that we have to operate. One of the things I'm very, very proud to say is that we will leave this government in better shape financially than we found it. While the state's bond ratings are in jeopardy, our bond ratings have only improved. We have more money in the bank today, despite the fact that we went through a recession. Our health insurance fund, when I got in, was millions in the red. Today, it is millions in the black. We were accessible. We said we would go anywhere, anytime, and we did. Thanks to Mike Grimsley and Bernadette Lee, we did a weekly radio call-in show, and we never screened any calls. I answered all questions, sometimes poorly, and I apologize for that. But we took the risk. We answered questions truthfully and never tried to sugarcoat it. Before the end of a second year, Max Hoyt came up to me and said, "Joey, you have put a face on government." Max, I never forgot those words or that responsibility. We focused on the people, not the persons. We made decisions based on what we thought was best for Lafayette, not for special interest groups. I suspect I made just about every narrowly focused group unhappy at some point. We listened to them and their issues, but we responded to the needs of and what was best for the greater good of our community. Our decisions were based on the whole of Lafayette, not pieces of Lafayette. With the guidance of Philippe Gustin, we have strengthened our international ties, and those efforts have been recognized. Because of the work Lynn did on the Marquis de Lafayette celebration, President Bush invited us to a state dinner with French President Sarkozy. And in March, 25 mayors from cities around the world the board of the AIMF will be presided over by the mayor of Parish right here in Lafayette. This is the first time this organization ever holds a meeting in the United States, and it will be here in Lafayette. At the end of my first year, Doug Menifee sent me an email that said, "You've delivered on every campaign promise you made in your first year." That was because I wasn't a politician that said anything it took just to get elected. We didn't promise a turkey on every table. We didn't make unrealistic, empty promises that you always hear, but you know deep down are impossible to deliver. We took a business approach, not a political approach. Have any of y'all seen those Project Front Yard commercials? Have you picked up on them? Pat Ottinger told me if he saw one more, he was going to start littering. You might have noticed that we don't say Lafayette anywhere in the public service announcements, and that was by design. We're announcing today that we are making Project Front Yard available to all of Acadiana, so they can benefit from our efforts. What could be an easier regional effort than cleaning up Acadiana together? We want every city and parish in Acadiana to know that all that we have is available to them. Working together, we can truly make this a cultural change initiative. I'm happy to announce that New Iberia and Iberia Parish is our first Acadiana partner. Very important to me. 2 of my children were born in New Iberia, and the people sitting at that table have strong ties to Lafayette. So I'll introduce you and I'd ask y'all to stand up. Today with us is Mayor Hilda Curry, Jane Bro of the Main Street Program, Parish Councilman David Ditch, Jason DeVilliers from the airport, Mike Tarantino from the Iberia Industrial Development Foundation, Farrell Armentar, and Janet Falk, the CEO with the Chamber of Commerce. Would y'all stand up? Thank you. Thank y'all. And just coincidentally, I happened to bump into the Cathedral principal and the St. Pius principal. They both jumped on board immediately to become Project Front Yard schools, and I'm hoping, obviously, others will follow, because we've got to get this into the schools. We had to get out of the box if we were going to move Lafayette into the future, and we did quickly. Within 4 months of taking office, we announced a feasibility study to explore the possibility of this community deploying its own fiber-to-the-premise network. You know the story, and so does much of the world. To Terry and to the whole team at LCG, thank you for working together for the good of all. Terry, we've gone through an awful lot together. Thank you for your loyalty and your commitment to our success. As I've traveled this parish, one of the most common things I am asked, when are we going to get fiber? That answer always depended, obviously, on making fiber a success in Lafayette. We're there. Today, I'm announcing that we will make our fiber technology available first to businesses in all the towns in Lafayette Parish, maybe even other parishes. It's another contribution to the regionalism effort we began in 2004, and the Chamber is taking to a new level. Jason, this ought to help. There are 3 criteria required for us to do this. Obviously, it has to make financial sense. Second, there's going to have to be an annexation agreement between Lafayette and that city. And number 3 should be easy. That city simply must be a good neighbor. I hope the next administration will adhere to these criteria, so to that end, I'm going to ask the governing authority of LUS, the LPUA, to pass an ordinance to this effect to provide that safeguard. Youngsville recently did a survey. Ken Ritter, are you here? I can't believe he missed this. Anyway, they just did a survey. UL did a survey for them. 75.3% of the people in Youngsville want fiber. So Youngsville is likely to be our very first opportunity because Mayor Viator, right here, and I put a brother-in-law deal together years ago, literally. But we agreed on an annexation map a couple of years ago, and Mayor Ritter has embraced it. So it looks like, with the help of the LPUA and our 2 councils, this could actually become a reality before the end of this year. I'm anxious to get this ball rolling, and I can't wait to see who wants to be next. How do I possibly thank all of the people who have played a role in our success? Let me start with many of you, the private sector. You have truly made Lafayette what it is today. Thank you. Without you, none of the rest really matters, and I'm honored to have served you all. Something I will always be proud of is the team that we assembled. There can be no doubt about the qualifications of the people we have put in place. To my staff and to Dee's, thank you for the work you do behind the scenes to make government work a little better for our citizens. Would y'all stand up, all y'all? Thank you to all of the directors, past and present, who I've had the great fortune to serve with. I can never, ever thank you enough. I just wish I had time here today to recognize each one of you, because you have all played significant roles in getting Lafayette where it is today. Would you please stand up? But we will always look into the future. When I look at who we have moved into various positions, I feel great about how we have begun preparing for that future. Now, you know me. I always like to acknowledge the elephant in the room. This is an election year, and I can't help that. It's also my last day to the parish, so I can't let that stop me from thanking the highest appointed official in this government. Dee, you have an amazing work ethic. You are the Energizer bunny rabbit. I know of no one who returns calls the way you do, and no one, and I do mean no one, gets the difficult things done like you. You are clearly the go-to guy. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you have meant to this administration and to Lafayette. I took a lot out because I didn't want to sound like it sounded, but you know, I had to do it. I've told every councilman, asked every councilman to please consider every vote that they cast on how it would affect Lafayette years from now. Thank you to the councilmen who I've served with, especially those who took some risk and cared enough about the future to do so. Are any of the councilmen? I know they wouldn't have missed this. Thank you, guys. I've poked fun at him over the years, but this administration has had no greater partner in our focus on getting jobs than Greg Gautreaux and Lita. Greg stood tall when others were timid. Greg stood by me when others hid behind me. Greg was always focused on getting jobs to Lafayette and to Acadiana. We started the regionalism discussion early on in my term, but it was Greg that took that effort to another level by actually funding a regional economic development entity. All I brought with my efforts was a high-profile position and the motivation to keep our young people home. I can never thank you enough for that partnership, Greg, but I do know it's nothing to joke about. Thank you. You said roads and infrastructure had to be a priority, and we made it a priority by offering you the ability to vote on the most dedicated infrastructure tax in the history of Lafayette, the year before my reelection. Had that tax passed, we would have over $400 million in new infrastructure already in the ground, with more on the way. But maybe, and I really mean this, I think maybe the failed sales tax was a blessing in disguise. It was probably the genesis of the development of a comprehensive plan. We knew that if we weren't going to just fund the necessary infrastructures as others had done before us, then we couldn't and cannot continue to develop in the same manner we have in the past. As I have said to you before, we have got to change the conversation. We have to change our approach in how we deal with issues like growth. The comprehensive plan gives us the opportunity to do it differently. We have no other choice. With the new airport terminal, we have a proven, trusted model to build specific projects in the future. It can be used to build a school, a bridge, a courthouse, a performing arts center, and more. This model can help gain your trust project by project. Just a little. Next month, you will have an opportunity to do something we hear a lot of talk about, improving government efficiency. You will vote on rededicating 2 millages into a single public health millage that adds animal control to it without raising any taxes. If it fails, you're going to still pay the tax. If it passes, animal control will have a dedicated funding source parish-wide, and eventually a needed state-of-the-art animal shelter can be built without taking money away from roads, bridges, drainage, or other important parish needs. If it fails, that future animal shelter cannot be built without taking money away from those needs. The savings to our general fund will be nearly $1.5 million per year, again, without raising taxes. Somebody, please tell me how this doesn't make sense. Much of our success was because you trusted us to do the right things for Lafayette. Hopefully you will trust us for a few more months because we're not stopping yet. There is nothing we can do to take downtown to another level than getting people to live there. We have got to turn the old federal courthouse into something great for downtown, not by us, but let's get it into the private sector's hands. Doing nothing for another 20 years would be sinful. With the help of the council, we'll get it done, hopefully this year. We still have a major component of the comp plan to get adopted, the Unified Development Code. With the amount of money the council has invested and the thousands of volunteer man-hours you have put in, I am optimistic the council will adopt it. We've started the conversation of a new performing arts center. That discussion must continue. We have the beginnings of another bridge across the river that could be done within 5 years, not 50. We're buying undeveloped land today so that we don't have to buy 81 homes later. All locations for our police substations have been identified. All avenues to fix consolidation fall squarely on the shoulders of the council and must go through the council. If I were able, I'd have brought a proposition to tweak the charter to the people to vote on that would put millions of dollars into the parish government without raising taxes. But no one seems to even want to discuss it. It's too bad, because the consequences of kicking the can down the road is affecting us all. Fixing consolidation should be the single biggest campaign issue this year. Otherwise, just plan on increasing taxes. You know, I get asked a lot, what I feel is our number one accomplishment, and what I say is, don't judge us by a single issue or two. Instead, judge us by the body of our work. How do you like the Lafayette we're leaving behind? If you like the accolades we have gotten over the past 11 years, if you like that our bond ratings have done nothing but improve, which recognizes the fiscally responsible way this government has been run, if you like the job growth, increased property values, the desirability of living in Lafayette as proven by our population growth, if you like the direction and atmosphere we have here in Lafayette, you will have to decide how to best keep that momentum going, and we do have momentum. Lafayette is on the map like never before. We appear at the top of many important positive lists. We're on the map for our business-friendly atmosphere, our fiber optic initiative, our festivals, our art and culture, our food, and our people. Even the President of the United States held up Lafayette's fiber initiative as an example for the rest of the country to emulate. Has that ever happened before? Has a president ever singled out Lafayette? We were, and still are, the leaders that America looks to. We worked to move Lafayette. We pushed you to move Lafayette, and you pushed us. I was true to my words about keeping our children and grandchildren in Acadiana. It's a mayor's job, or a parish president's job, to push, to take risk. When a mayor stops taking risk, he's not being true to the people who put him or her there. Everything I did I did because I love my family, and I want them to inherit an even better Lafayette. Everything I did for the good of all of Lafayette. I did everything that I did, knowing it might even sometimes make some of you unhappy. But I did what I did. I did everything that I did because I also love you, the people of Lafayette. Thank you.
Quite an ovation. And Lynn just told us that we have one more person in Lafayette for you to love, and that's a 7-pound, 10-ounce baby boy grandson. So congratulations. So if you're taking, so I'll ask Joey now to move over to his seat, and if Wally and Pearson would come down, we're going to have.
If y'all want to go home, we can end it right now.
I understand some people probably will have to slip out, but this was such a popular feature last year that we wanted to repeat it again this year, and it is very rare. Those of us in the media have access to elected officials pretty freely and pretty often, and again, I think that speaks to the transparency in Joey's administration that he talked about being so proud of. But you know, many people don't have that kind of access and dialogue, and so we hope that maybe that in some way this conversation can assist in the communication between the community and our elected officials. And so Joey is gracious enough. Again, these questions have not been submitted before, so we're going to take about 10 or 15 minutes and see how it goes. And again, this is Walter Pierce and Dr. Pearson Cross from UL. So if you need to slip out, we understand, but I hope the rest of you can stay and enjoy the conversation. So with that, Wally?
Well, first let me say, I'm not going to throw down spike strips for your victory lap, so this will be relatively painless. Were you had a bittersweet feeling while you were looking over your ghostwriter's shoulder as they wrote that speech just now?
Well, whatever the ghost was, I was, yeah. It was, you know, it was, this is one that I've probably worried about for the last 2 or 3 years, more than I've worried about any other one. You know, I couldn't wait to get my family up here. Over the years, I've had the directors up here. I've had other mayors up here. But I knew several years ago that my last one would have my family up here because they're the ones that, you know, really make most of the sacrifices. So, but, you know, you look back and, you know, I'm very proud of our work in 11 years. There's nothing that I lose sleep over that I'm ashamed that we did. I mean, we may have made mistakes, but all of our mistakes were motivated. If we'd made any, were motivated by trying to do the right thing for our area.
You were a business owner in the 1980s during the last oil bust. Talk a little bit about what that was like from that perspective. And I don't recall you talking at great length about, or even at all, about oil prices and what that may do to the Acadiana economy. So what was it like in the 80s dealing with the oil bust, and are you worried going forward with the price of oil?
Well, I'll start off by telling you, every one of my businesses survived. You know, I mean, you know, business, that's one of the real interesting lessons I've learned. In the 80s, when I was in retailing and business went down, I had fewer customers, I had fewer needs within my store, so I was able to cut back on employees and find ways to cut expenses. Government, when the economy takes a dive, the demand for government doesn't go away. You can't control hurricanes and flooding and streets and whatever else. So that's been sort of an interesting dynamic to learn the difference between the two. And but you know, like I said, I mean, of course, I was in retailing. I wasn't in the oil and gas business. I mean, I didn't feel it the way they did. I mean, we struggled. It took a lot, but I can remember thinking to myself, man, I've got a much larger payroll, and I'm not taking anything out myself. Thank goodness Lynn was working, but you know, we survived, and I think others will. I think Lafayette, while still strongly connected to the oil and gas industry, is a little bit more diversified than it was, and I think the companies are a little bit smarter than they were because of what happened in the 80s.
Joey, this is a little bit of a hardball bit. How can local government, like the kind you lead right now, best respond to a state government that is downsizing and is maybe providing less resources for parishes and city governments and so on?
Well, we haven't, I've said we took over College Sloom Road because I said if we're going to wait for the state to make us great, we might as well hang it up right now. I strongly believe, and I've said this very many times, that the best hope for Louisiana is at the local level. If my goal is to make Lafayette and Lafayette Parish the best place to live and raise a family, and Hilda's goal and David's goal is to make Iberia Parish the best place to live and raise a family, and Kip Holden's goal is the same thing, and Randy Roach's goal is the same thing, then it becomes kind of a crystal. But I think state government, is I've learned we can't wait for state government to make us great. I mean, we have to take care of ourselves because there's too many people sticking their fingers in the pie in Baton Rouge. There's not much of a pie left, it doesn't look like.
The 1 cent, 1 year, 1 project turned out to be a great idea, very successful. It's actually only an 8-month tax. We'll get a new airport terminal out of it. If you could say, this is the next thing that I would like to see a tax like this dedicated to, what is that need that we could use that for?
Well, it's like I said during the airport tax. Roads are the #1 priority. Public safety is the #1 priority. Parks and Recreation is the #1 priority. The airport we have a lot of #1 priorities. Sure. The difference was the airport was ready to go. And the other thing about the airport was you were able to do a temporary tax. If you want to give pay raises to employees, police and fire, you don't give them a pay raise for that year. It's forever. So that tax will never go away. So for us, I believe the next thing that's under our responsibility, that could be a 8-month tax, a 9-month tax, whatever, could be the bridge at South City Parkway. But as I told Bernal Lejeune, I said, we need to stay in close touch with each other, because if y'all have a school that's ready to go, where you've got the land identified, the engineering's done, the architecture's done, and you're ready to move, then I said, you can maybe get a school built. But I think whoever goes next can't be because we just want to be next. We've got to stay in close touch with each other about what is it, who's got something ready to go. If our bridge isn't ready for 5 more years, we shouldn't go for it for another 4 or 5 years. If a school can't be ready for 3 or 4 more years, they should wait 3 or 4 more years. So whether it's a specific road or, like I said, any specific project, we know there's talk about a courthouse or a courthouse annex. That would be a way, because, I got to tell you, in 7 years, I haven't had a single councilman come to me and say, we've got to find a way to build a new courthouse. Not one time. So the courthouse is not a big priority, but if things are identified right, and that would be ready, I think that would be something potentially, because we have to do something. We can't ignore it forever. Sooner or later, it'll cost us more and we'll pay a higher price for it. But so whoever's got something legitimate, ready next, that's what should be next.
But that courthouse lobby, for lack of a better word, is kind of throwing a wrench in the works for the old federal courthouse, right?
Right.
That's what's slowing down that project, is a undeniable need for a new parish courthouse, and a lot of folks believing that it ought to be right there.
Well, the consultant said it's a terrible site for a courthouse, and we told the consultant, but that's where it's got to be. Mm-hmm. So the location where the old parish garage is, we probably own 70% of the property. My attitude is we ought to declare that whole block a public necessity and let everybody operate in their businesses the way they are right now. But sooner or later, people sell things. And the people I've talked to in the courthouse that are lobbying so hard against doing something with the old federal courthouse have said to me face to face, we know nothing's going to get done for another 20 years. We know we're not going to build another courthouse. And I said, so you're willing to let downtown deteriorate and become what it was before because you hope to have a courthouse 20 years from now? So I said, I'm not asking you to quit lobbying for the old federal courthouse to be the site. I'm offering you an alternative. So where the old parish garage is, that all needs to be bulldozed at some point anyway. So at some point, when a building on the corner, they decide to sell it, we become their only customer, and we have to pay them full value for it. They're not going to get the raw end of the deal. They're going to get full appraised value for it. So over a period of 20 years, let's buy up that property and have a courthouse annex directly across the street from the courthouse instead of a whole block away where prisoners have to be ushered back and forth even a longer distance and that sort of thing. So to me, we have an alternative, and we have an opportunity to bring downtown to another whole level. Look, Austin is what it is today for one reason. Well, many reasons. But the thing that turned Austin around several years ago was they focused on getting residential downtown. We have got to get residential downtown.
One quick follow-up, and then I'll toss it over to Pearson. The airport tax expires at the end of the year. Do you think Lafayette is ready to embrace a tax like that every year moving forward? Do we need to take a little break from it for a year?
No, I don't. I mean, if the school system says we're ready to go, we you know, I don't think it's. I mean, people, it won pretty big in Youngsville. Everybody said, you know, Youngsville's already higher than anybody else in Lafayette Parish. It's not going to pass over there. 1 box voted against it in Youngsville. 6 boxes in all of Lafayette Parish voted against that tax. People are not anti-tax. Wilson proved that with the sports complex in Youngsville. People are not anti-tax. You can't be anti-tax and be pro-military, right? You can't be anti-tax and be pro-policeman and pro-farmer. We're not anti-tax. We just want bang for our buck. And I think if it's legitimate, if it's ready, and we give instant gratification with that tax, I think people will do it. But we have to gain that trust. I forget who it was. Some politician came to me and said, next time we ought to go for 4 different things. I said, you're going to blow it. I said, go for one thing next time. Go for another one thing the next time. Maybe at some point you say we want to build this bridge and this road, but don't jump too fast on this. You know, I mean, you've got to do it, and it's got to be legitimate, and I think people will support it.
One of the nice things about commenting about you over the years is that you constantly confound the kind of Republican, fiscal conservative, businessman profile.
Our bond ratings have done nothing but go up. We were very fiscally conservative.
By having a very progressive, in some ways, kind of agenda for local government, and I applaud you for that. I'm curious about what kind of initiatives you think, some parts of our parish are doing better than others, and what kind of initiatives do you think might get at kind of increasing and spreading that economic boom that some areas in the parish are having to all areas in the parish? I mean, there's some things that come to mind.
You know, the private sector. I mean, government can do, like I said, you can facilitate a little bit of that. But, you know, one of the things you have to realize is, Tom Carroll told me this several years ago, that one of the reasons we're seeing more and more flooding problems is because the best places to develop have been developed. Now we're starting to develop into secondary locations. Now that doesn't mean there's not still great locations, but they're not for sale yet. They're not being developed. But the other thing is the FEMA maps have changed a lot of that. So, you know, you start with that, you know, and as far as some areas developing better than others, I mean, that's the people's choice. I mean, you know, do you build roads with the money we have to take care of roads, which is not much? I mean, we're okay in the city. The parish is sucking wind. But do you build a road the hope that you'll produce something out there, or do you build the road to fix the traffic congestion you have now? You know, and I don't. For me, there's not. You know, I don't see how you have much choice. You got to take care of what you're dealing with right now.
Okay. When you were talking about extending LUS Fiber to the satellite communities around Lafayette, you mentioned in exchange for an annexation agreement. Speak about that a little bit more. What does that entail? You
know, most of the mayors have been receptive to the idea. I've talked to several of them and said, you know, the small towns are not part of consolidation. They're part of parish government. They don't contribute anything to consolidation itself. They contribute to parish government. And of course, the towns don't, the people do. So the money they pay to the airport is parish-wide. That's parish government. The money they pay to LEDA is parish government. The money they pay to the libraries is parish government. They're all getting the benefits from that. The little piece of parish government is roads and drainage, and there's not a whole lot there for that. So all that money, really, for all practical purposes, has been spent outside in the unincorporated areas for about 40 years. What I've gone to the mayors with for many, many times over the years is, in more recent years, I've said, at some point, the other towns are going to have to step up to the plate to help parish government. And they say, we agree. And what I mean by that is, you look at some of the annexations, and they make no sense at all. I mean, some of the annexations for the police department in Scott to get to another piece of Scott, they would have to drive about 5 or 10 minutes in Lafayette to get to that. From an emergency services standpoint, that makes no sense. There's islands. There's meandered sort of annexations. And at some point, if all the towns, including Lafayette, we could get legislation passed that would sort of allow them to clean up those borders, close everything in. All those little islands, all those little weird pieces of Parish are parish government responsibility. But yet they're surrounded by the cities. They benefit, if anything, the other cities. So at some point, that's one way. There's two ways to make money in business, right? You can either increase your sales or decrease your expenses. I'm just trying to find a way, because I don't think y'all want to increase our sales anytime soon for parish government, so I was trying to find a way to decrease our expenses. So if all the towns stepped up to the plate and annexed, and the other thing, and maybe more to your point, I met with all the mayors in Lafayette Parish within 2 or 3 weeks after I got in office. And I'm a new guy, enthusiastic, and I felt a tension almost immediately, and I saw the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and it was all about annexation. And so I've grappled with that over the years, and you can look at the legendary, ridiculous battles we've had to deal with in Lafayette. They're all related to annexation. And so the thing I wanted so badly to get done for the next administration was to get these lines drawn where Wilson and I had agreed that Youngsville will never annex across this road, Lafayette will never annex across that road. We drew some lines so that we took off that competitive need to annex something unnecessarily just to make sure they didn't get it, And so most of the towns have grown in a way that has stretched their dollars, and they're having to take care of things that are way beyond their normal means of being able to take care of it. And so if we drew those lines, it would make people start annexing in a much more deliberate way, much more intellectual sort of way. And when somebody came and said, I'm going to develop out here, but I want y'all to annex us, they could say, mm-mm.
Is that the map that was affectionately referred to as Joeyville?
I never referred to that. But yes.
Some in your office might have.
Yeah.
But so the annexation agreement that you're talking about with the incentive of getting LUS Fiber is to agree to that,
right,
to those lines.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. This is kind of your last public statement. Is there something, and you alluded to, well,
I'm going to still be here 10 more months. I'm not dying today.
Sorry, I didn't mean to push you out the door, but we're looking past you, Joey. I'm sorry, it's a... no, the question I have is, you said to me one time when you came to one of my classes, you said, parish and city government's so complicated and so crazy that I learn a new thing every day. Every day I learn something new. So I'm going to ask you, probably put you on the spot, what are you going to tell your predecessor? What's the most important thing? How do you do politics successfully at this level?
I'm going to tell you, the roughest thing is answering to 7 masters. I mean, how do you function? And for me, it's pretty easy from a reality business standpoint, because almost every ordinance reflects where the tax base comes from. So it's either a city issue or it's a parish issue. But what comes out of my mouth sometimes is it's hard to explain that. And so how does a person come in here? And I will tell you that one of the things I will tell them is, if you care about the people of Lafayette Parish, if you care about the people of Acadiana, you better take care of the city. And so when the person takes care of the city, he might come across as being, divisive. It's not that you don't care about the rest, but you've got specific responsibilities there. So when you talk about taking care of the city, then you feel like you're sort of alienating the people outside the city. But yet, that city issue is a city-specific issue. It's really not that difficult. So my advice to them is, just be true to the process. If it's a parish issue, it's a parish issue. If it's a city issue, it's a city issue. The only way somebody can come in here and avoid all that is to take specific sides, and quite frankly, what's a good word for, you have to betray another one. I mean, the only way that somebody can get in this position and make the parish people see things, visible, whatever, the only way they can do that today, I'm telling you, is to take money from the city, which is illegal, inappropriate, and it is just completely wrong. So that's not what the people voted for. Now, if they want to vote for it, I've thought about bringing an ordinance to the council to let you vote. Do you want to start letting our taxes in the city go parish-wide? I mean, you want to do that. I mean, you'll get a lot less done in the city, But maybe it's time to put that to a vote. You want consolidation, let's consolidate. But when you start taking that responsibility, it's going to be at the expense of something else. So the difficult part of this job is I've got to be true to Broussard, I've got to be true to Youngsville, I've got to be true to Karen Crow, Dussault, Scott, and I have no jurisdiction in any of those cities. But they all vote for this position. And of course, it's the city of Lafayette, but the unincorporated area is the seventh master I have to answer to. So I'm just telling you, it's a difficult thing to balance. It's a difficult thing to explain and to market. So if you don't say it just right, if y'all don't report it just right, then you look divisive, and you live with it.
We have time for one final question.
Okay, well, going back, you mentioned asking for the LPUA to approve something. I think this plan, probably a lot of folks don't know that the LPUA is the Lafayette Public Utility Authority. It's the 5 council members who are a majority city, like a city council within the city parish council. About a month ago, the LPUA was overruled by the full council, and the LPUA, according to charter, is the governing authority for LUS. We've always been on the same side about problems with the charter and needing to fix it. Yes, yes.
Pretty good.
How do we fix it? What do we do?
I was hoping somebody, and he would have filed a lawsuit against us. I'd have begged for a lawsuit. The only way these things are going to get fixed is with a charter commission. I can't magically do something to fix consolidation. I can't even vote on doing anything to fix consolidation other than if the council brings something. The council, and there's a conflict in state law. Our charter says that the council can put something before you to vote on that will amend the charter. State law says you must appoint a charter commission. So we can't even get our arms around that. We have we have a charter that was, it's like I tell people all the time, it looks good on paper, it feels good, it sounds good, but it's not working. And the only way this can get fixed that I see is for our council to appoint a charter commission, and they have not been willing to step up to the plate.
They shut
to do
that down last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to say thanks to Wally and Pearson. I want to say congratulations to Lynn and Joey on their new grandson, and all the Durrell family on their new nephew and grandson and all that. And thanks again to Iberia Bank for sponsoring the series. April 16th is the date of the InDesign Awards, and please, I hope you'll read more about Steve Mouzon and the great work that's coming out of Plan Lafayette 2015. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody.
We're all going to the hospital.